Most men are trained to chase moments, not build empires. You learn lines, tricks, and tactics. You learn how to get a reaction, how to get a date, how to get a number. Almost nobody teaches you how to build the kind of presence that makes a woman orient her life around you voluntarily. Most men learn seduction. Very few ever learn leadership. And in the real world, women follow the man with a mission, not the man with clever lines. You already know this at a gut level. Think about the men you have seen who never struggle with attention. They are not always the best looking. They are not always the funniest. They are not always the ones sending the most messages. They are the ones whose life already has direction before any woman steps into it. Their career, their discipline, their standards, their vision are not up for negotiation. A woman can join that reality or walk away, but she cannot easily bend it. That is romantic power. Machiavelli understood this pattern long before there were dating apps. He was not talking about relationships when he wrote, but about states and rulers. Yet human nature does not change just because the setting does. When he said, "It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both," he was not telling you to terrify women. He was pointing at a deeper truth. Love without respect collapses. Affection without boundaries becomes contempt. If she does not feel a little fear of losing you, she will never feel a deep respect for being with you. This is where most modern men get destroyed. You are told that the goal is to make her happy at all costs. You are told that the masculine role is to adapt, to accommodate, to smooth over every discomfort. You chase her mood, her approval, her attention. You turn yourself into an emotional performer in your own relationship. And then you wonder why, the more you give, the less she seems to value it. What looks like kindness from your side often looks like weakness from hers. So let's draw a hard line right now. This is not a guide to manipulation, cruelty, or emotional abuse. Machiavelli was ruthless, but he was not stupid. Even he wrote that a ruler must avoid being hated. Romantic power is not about domination. It is about leadership. It is about being the emotional and strategic center of gravity in the relationship. You do not control her. You control yourself and the terms on which you participate. You become the man she can relax into because you are not scrambling for her validation. To do that, you need to understand that there are levels to this game. Attraction is only the first level. Retention is the second. Long-term influence is the third. Attraction is the spark, the initial magnetism, the chemistry that makes her curious about you. Retention is the pattern of behavior that makes her want to stay. Long-term influence is what makes her willing to follow you when the road gets steep, when your mission demands sacrifice, when life stops being a highlight reel and becomes a real campaign. Most dating advice lives and dies at the first level. How to text, how to flirt, how to be interesting. That is the lowest form of power because it is the easiest to replace. She can get that from 100 men with decent social skills. She cannot easily replace a man who is calm under pressure, grounded in his own values, disciplined in his habits, and relentless about his mission. Attraction gets her attention. Retention earns her respect. Long-term influence earns her loyalty. Ask yourself something brutally honest. If Machiavelli audited your love life as if it were a small kingdom, what would he see? Would he see a solid fortress with clear walls, rules, and standards? Or would he see a chaotic carnival where anyone can wander in? Where your time, your energy, and your attention are available on demand to any woman who gives you a drop of validation. In politics, that kind of open border invites invasion. In romance, it invites disrespect. The men who hold romantic power treat their life like a state, not like a playground. They have laws, not suggestions. They have standards, not preferences. They have consequences, not empty threats. When Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does at last," he was describing exactly what you must learn to do in relationships. You enforce your standards early, calmly, and consistently, instead of waiting until resentment has poisoned everything. The transformation you are here for is simple to describe and difficult to execute. You are shifting from needy, performative, approval-chasing behavior into calm, principled, high-value leadership. That means you stop performing for women and start performing for your mission. You stop negotiating your self-respect to keep someone from leaving. You stop treating every romantic opportunity like a lottery ticket and start behaving like the prize that must be earned and maintained. This is where the hook angle becomes a lifestyle. Most men are obsessed with seduction because they are secretly terrified of being alone. They believe their value comes from access to women, so they contort themselves to get that hit. A Machiavellian man flips the equation. He understands that his primary relationship is with his mission, his discipline, and his future self. A woman does not complete that. She either aligns with it or distracts from it. One path multiplies his power, the other drains it. There is a hierarchy inside every healthy relationship, even if nobody admits it out loud. At the top is your mission, the overarching direction of your life. Beneath that is your character, your habits, your mental and physical health. Only then comes the relationship itself. When you invert that hierarchy and put her above everything, you might feel romantic for a moment, but you are quietly destroying her attraction. She does not want to sit on a throne above your life. She wants to sit beside a man whose life is already bigger than both of them. You might feel a spike of fear as you hear this. What if she leaves if I put my mission first? What if I lose her if I stop over-investing? Here is the hard truth. If the only way to keep her is to abandon yourself, you do not actually have her. You are renting her presence at the cost of your own respect. And once you lose your respect for yourself, her respect for you is not far behind. Machiavelli wrote, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." In romance, this begins with commanding yourself. You command your impulses. You command your neediness. You command the urge to over-explain, over-pursue, over-confess. You become the man who can say no to himself, so that when you say no to others, it carries weight. A man who cannot deny his own urges will never be trusted to lead anyone else. In this series, we will break down 17 Machiavellian laws of romantic power that almost no man is ever taught. These laws are not party tricks. They are structures. Laws about standards, distance, consequence, mystery, hierarchy, loyalty, and alignment. Each one is a brick in the fortress of your masculine presence. Followed together, they turn you from a man chasing reactions into a man women quietly orbit. Right now, you stand at a fork. On one side is the familiar loop. Chase her, impress her, overinvest, get anxious, lose her respect. Start again. On the other side is a different path. You become the man who can attract, retain, and influence without begging, performing or apologizing for his own standards. You stop playing the role of the entertainer and start occupying the role of the leader. In the next part, we begin with the first of these laws and draw the line between being chosen as temporary entertainment and being chosen as a man she is willing to follow. If your love life is a constant series of negotiations, you are already losing. Power in romance starts long before you meet any specific woman. It begins with the laws you quietly write for yourself and refuse to break. Most men do the opposite. They wait until they like someone. Then they start improvising who they are based on what they think she wants. That is how you become charming but replaceable. Machiavellian romantic power flips this. You become defined before she arrives. Number 1, standards before seduction. Most men walk into dating with one standard: does she like me? A Machiavellian man adds a second, more important standard: do I respect myself in how I deal with her? That small shift changes everything. When standards come before seduction, you stop auditioning and start evaluating. You notice how she talks about people she used to love. You notice how she treats service staff when nobody is watching. You notice how she responds when you say no. You're not just impressed by beauty or chemistry. You are asking a deeper question. Does this woman fit into the life I am building, or does she threaten it? Machiavelli wrote that the first opinion, which is formed of a ruler's intelligence, is based on the quality of the men he has around him. Translate that directly into your reality. The first serious opinion a woman forms about your depth is based on what you tolerate around you. If your social circle is chaotic, your routines are sloppy, and your past relationships are stories of you being walked on, she will feel it. You can say you have high standards, but she is, watching the facts on the ground. Your standards are not what you declare. They are what you have consistently enforced. This is where you start to feel the internal friction. You may realize that right now, your romantic standards are vague. You know what you like, but not what you will absolutely not tolerate. You might hesitate to draw a line because you are afraid of being alone again. That is why this law has to come first. Without clear standards, every later law turns into strategy layered over insecurity. With clear standards, even imperfect execution still trends upward because you are anchored in something solid. Number 2, non-negotiable boundaries. Standards describe what you want. Boundaries describe what you will do when those standards are violated. Most men never define either. They simply react to each situation based on emotion, fear, or guilt. A woman disrespects them once, and they laugh it off. She does it again, and they argue. She does it a third time, and they explode or beg. There is no consistent law, only emotional weather. Machiavelli would call that a weak state, easily invaded. He says, a prince must learn how not to be good, and to use that knowledge, or not use it according to necessity. In romance, that means you must be willing to disappoint, to say no, to walk away from comfort in order to protect your long-term position. Being good in the shallow sense of always being agreeable is exactly how you lose her deeper respect. A boundary is not a speech, it is a pattern. For example, if raising voices is a hard limit for you, you do not just say it once. The first time it happens, you calmly end the interaction and remove your presence. No lecture, no drama, just clear cause and effect. Over time, she learns that your boundaries are not theories. They are reality. The psychology behind this is simple and brutal. Human beings, including you and her, calibrate their behavior based on consequences. If there are no consequences, there is no real boundary. You can love someone and still have lines they cannot cross without losing access to you. In fact, that is the only way love stays healthy over time. Without boundaries, affection turns into exploitation on one side and resentment on the other. With boundaries, even intense conflict can strengthen the relationship because both people know where the floor is. You may be thinking, what if she leaves if I enforce this? Here is the Machiavellian answer. If enforcing a reasonable boundary makes her leave, her loyalty was never to you. It was to the comfort of having you under her full control. Machiavelli warns that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous, not to make you cynical, but to keep you from being naive. Expect that some people will walk away when they realize they cannot control you. Let them. You are a ruler consolidating a strong state, not a performer terrified of losing the audience. Number 3, strategic distance. This law destroys one of the biggest myths in modern romance, that constant availability equals love. Most men smother their own value. The second they feel interest from a woman, they flood her with time, attention, and emotional access. Every free moment becomes a check-in, a call, a text. There is no mystery, no anticipation, no sense that your attention actually costs anything. But in every market, what is oversupplied is devalued. Your presence is no different. Strategic distance is not childish, playing hard to get. It is recognizing that closeness only has meaning when distance exists. Machiavelli noted that injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that their ill savor being less lasting. Men are less offended, while benefits should be conferred little by little, so that they may be better enjoyed. Apply that principle to your attention. You do not drip-feed chaos and disrespect. You do, however, allow your presence, your time, and your intimacy to be experienced in waves, not a constant stream she takes for granted. In practice, this means your life remains full and structured regardless of who you are seeing. You do not drop your training, your work, your friends, and your quiet time just because she appears. You do not answer instantly every time she messages. You are not rude or manipulative. You are simply a man whose day already has a rhythm. When you speak, you are fully present. When you are gone, you are fully gone. She gets the gift of missing you. She gets to feel the gap between contact and absence. That gap is where desire lives. Psychologically, strategic distance resets an ancient polarity. Feminine energy tests through emotion, chaos, and fluctuation. Masculine energy leads through stability, pacing, and direction. When you collapse that polarity by becoming emotionally reactive and constantly available, you erase exactly what she is searching for. When you maintain distance with warmth, you become something rare. You're not scrambling to be chosen. You are inviting her to step into a life that is already in motion. You might argue that in modern dating, if you do not respond fast or chase aggressively, she will just move on to someone else. And sometimes that is true. But ask yourself who she is moving on to. Typically, another man just as available, just as approval-hungry, just as willing to trade his self-respect for attention. If you want to compete in that race, you can. But understand that the prize at the end is a relationship built on your willingness to abandon yourself. Machiavellian power does not compete in that arena. It creates its own. Notice how these first three laws connect. Standards before seduction make you selective. Non-negotiable boundaries make you consistent. Strategic distance makes you valuable. Together, they change your energy from chasing to choosing. A woman feels that. Even if she cannot explain it, she senses that you are not a man she can easily move around like furniture. You are a fixed point. She can align with it or drift away from it, but she cannot bend it at will. In the next part, we move deeper into the laws that shape how she perceives your value over time. Beyond the first attraction, beyond the early chase, laws about mystery, hierarchy, and consequence that decide whether she sees you as a temporary thrill or as the man around whom her future quietly starts to orbit. By now you can feel the shift. Standards, boundaries, and distance move you from chasing to choosing. But there is another layer that decides whether a woman feels raw, irrational attraction to you or just polite respect. It is not what most men think. It is not how much you confess, how much you explain, or how loudly you advertise your intentions. It is how you control the flow of information, the hierarchy of priorities, and your energy in conflict. Number 4, mystery over full disclosure. Modern culture tells you that radical transparency is the highest virtue. Tell her everything. Overshare your trauma on the first date. Spill every thought, every insecurity, every fear, so she can really know you. Machiavelli would look at that and see a ruler throwing open the gates of his fortress to prove he has nothing to hide. It feels honest. In practice, it often kills attraction. Why? Because the mind is addicted to mystery. What is fully known is rarely deeply desired. Machiavelli wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, few can touch." In romance, this means she is forming her deepest impressions, not from your explanations, but from what she observes, guesses, and senses. Mystery is not lying. It is pacing. It is understanding that your inner world is earned access, not a floodgate you open for anyone who shows you attention. You let her experience who you are through your actions first, then gradually reveal the deeper layers as trust and alignment grow. Psychologically, this flips the usual script. Most men treat early romantic attention as permission to unload. They monologue about their ex, their failures, their wounds, their loneliness. They hope that by dumping everything on the table, they will secure empathy and create a special connection. What they actually create is a sense of emotional chaos and overfamiliarity. There is no tension left, no discovery, no distance for her imagination to travel. When everything is revealed too quickly, the mind stops projecting possibilities and starts picking apart details. Mystery means you answer questions honestly but not exhaustively. When she asks about your past, you give a clean, simple version, not a 3-hour confession. When she probes your feelings too early, you stay warm but grounded. You do not pretend to feel nothing. but you also do not hand over your entire emotional center to someone who has not yet earned that level of access. She should feel that there is more to learn about you, more to unlock, more to discover. That sense of, I do not fully have this man yet, is one of the engines of long-term desire. Number 5, hierarchy of mission. Inside every man, there is an unspoken ranking of what matters most. For most men, in practice, it looks like this. A woman shows interest. Instantly, she rises to the top. Work gets negotiated. Discipline gets postponed. Health gets neglected. Friendships get ignored. The mission is the first sacrifice at the altar of romance. Machiavelli understood what happens to rulers who neglect the core of their state to impress others. They get invaded. He said, the chief foundations of all states are good laws and good arms. Your arms are your skills, your health, your discipline. Your laws are your standards and boundaries. When a woman watches you sacrifice your arms and your laws the second you feel infatuation, she learns something crucial. She learns that your mission is flexible, but her emotions are not. She can pull you off course with a mood. That might feel flattering to her ego at first, but it quietly kills trust. If you will abandon your purpose to please her, what will you abandon when life really pressures you? Hierarchy of mission means this. She is important, but she is not your God. Your mission sits above both of you. This is not coldness. It is leadership. When you have a major deadline, you do not drop it because she is momentarily bored. When you have training, you do not skip it every week because she prefers cuddling. When you are building something, you do not constantly fracture your focus to prove that she is your entire world. You include her in your world, but you never let her replace it. This hierarchy does something powerful to the female psyche. On the surface, some women will complain. They may say you are too focused or too disciplined or too obsessed with your work. But at a deeper level, they feel something rare, security. They begin to sense that your life is anchored to something bigger than moods, arguments, or temporary attraction. You become the man she can trust when things are collapsing, because you do not collapse your mission every time she tests you. Number 6, calm dominance in conflict. The truth of your romantic power does not show in peaceful moments. Anyone can be charming when everything feels good. Power reveals itself when there is tension. Machiavelli advised rulers to expect ingratitude, volatility, and betrayal from men under pressure. Not because everyone is evil, but because fear and desire make people irrational. In romance, you will see this in conflict, in emotional storms, in sudden accusations, or emotional withdrawal. The question is not whether this will happen. The question is who leads the frame when it does. Most men lose themselves here. They raise their voice to match hers. They argue point by point, desperate to be understood. They send novels of text when they feel misunderstood. They flood her with justifications, apologies, explanations. In that moment, they think they are fighting for the relationship. In reality, they are showing that her emotional weather completely controls their state. The man who was calm, centered, and composed when things were light becomes frantic and unstable the second she feels upset. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Translate this into your internal world. The men around you are your impulses. When conflict hits, what stands around your mind? Panic, neediness, rage, or discipline, perspective, patience. Calm dominance in conflict means you slow down when she speeds up. Your voice gets lower when hers rises. You hold eye contact. You do not rush to fill every silence. You respond to the core of what she is saying, not to every chaotic detail. Practically, this can look like you saying, I hear that you are angry. I'm not going to yell. If we keep shouting, nothing gets solved. I'm going to take an hour, clear my head, and then we can talk. Then you actually do it. You step away. You regulate yourself. You come back measured. You are not punishing her with silence. You are refusing to participate in a dynamic that drags both of you down. Over time, she learns that she cannot pull you into the lowest version of yourself at will. That realization shifts the power dynamic permanently. There is deep psychology behind this. Human nervous systems sync. In any interaction, one nervous system will lead and the other will follow. If you let your system be led by hers, she must become the emotional adult. She loses respect. If you lead with calm and grounded presence, her nervous system has something to mirror. She may resist at first, especially if she is used to emotional chaos as a form of control. But if she is healthy enough to be with, she will eventually relax into your stability. Now step back and see the pattern emerging. Mystery over full disclosure protects your depth. Hierarchy of mission protects your future. Calm dominance in conflict protects your frame. Together with the earlier laws, you are building a man who is not easily moved, not easily decoded, and not easily thrown off course. That is exactly the kind of man a feminine partner tests hardest and follows deepest. In the next part, we step into the shadows Machiavelli knew all too well. You will see the quiet power leaks that drain men of romantic authority every day, and you will learn how to begin testing for loyalty and alignment before you give any woman the keys to your inner kingdom. That is where the game stops being about attraction and starts being about legacy. By now, you can feel that this is not about tricks. It is about becoming a man whose very way of living commands a different response from women. But even as you build standards, boundaries, mystery, mission, and calm dominance, there are quiet leaks that drain your power without you noticing. You might be doing almost everything right, yet one or two patterns turn you from leader into emotional servant. Machiavelli would call these weaknesses in the walls of your fortress. If you ignore them, it does not matter how strong the rest of the structure is. That is where we go now. Number 7, no worship, no pedestal. This one burns a little because modern culture romanticizes exactly the behavior that destroys you. You are taught that putting a woman above everything is noble. You are told that obsessively praising her, chasing her, and making her the center of your emotional universe proves you are a good man. In reality, it proves you are a man without a center. A woman does not want to sit on a throne above you. She wants to sit beside a man whose life already has a throne. His mission, his values, his standards. When you pedestalize a woman, you do something very specific to the power dynamic. You assign her the role of judge and assign yourself the role of applicant. You speak as if she is inherently more valuable than you. You talk about her as if you won the lottery just by being in her presence. You tolerate disrespect because you are afraid of losing this precious opportunity. Machiavelli, describing how citizens treat rulers, wrote that men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. When you pedestalize, you are that man. You deceive yourself into believing she is a goddess, so you can ignore the fact that you are lowering yourself. Psychologically, pedestalization kills attraction for a simple reason. It creates an unbearable gap between how you treat her and how you treat yourself. A healthy feminine woman cannot deeply desire a man she must look down on. She might enjoy the attention, the gifts, the emotional labor, but she will not feel the raw, almost involuntary pull that comes from looking up to a man. When you refuse to worship, you allow respect to grow. You see her clearly. You appreciate her, but you also see her flaws, her patterns, her character. You do not romanticize bad behavior just because it comes in a beautiful package. Number 8, withdraw your automatic yes. Most men's love life is built on an unspoken rule. If she asks, I must say yes. Yes to plans you do not want. Yes to conversations at times that drain you. Yes to emotional processing when you are already exhausted. Yes to changing your priorities, your friendships, your schedule, because you are terrified that a no will make her pull away. This is one of the most devastating leaks of masculine power. A man who cannot say no with calm conviction will eventually say a much uglier no through resentment, shutdown, or betrayal. Machiavelli said, "He who is highly esteemed is not easily conspired against." Esteem comes from being difficult to sway, not stubborn for no reason, but anchored. When you withdraw your automatic yes, you stop treating her every request as an emergency. You begin to weigh it against your mission and your own capacity. Sometimes you still say yes, but now it means something. Other times you say no, I cannot do that today, or that does not work for me, and you let the silence stand. You do not rush to soften it with over-explaining. You are not cruel. You are just real. This is where the fear hits, because this change exposes how deep your neediness runs. You may have built an entire identity around being the good guy who is always available, always understanding, always flexible. You confuse self-abandonment with love. But here is what actually happens when you withdraw your automatic yes. The people who were using you panic or leave. The woman who only valued you as a doormat loses interest. And the woman who is capable of real partnership wakes up. She begins to see you as someone with a spine, not just a soft heart. That is the man she can trust when life stops being comfortable. Now, before we go deeper, I want you to lock this into your mind and drop it in the comments. I lead with mission, not with need. That sentence is not a slogan, it is a new operating system. Leading with mission means every yes and every no flows from your direction, not your desperation. You are no longer picking actions based on, will she leave if I do this? You're asking, does this align with the man I am becoming? Once that shift is made, the entire relationship begins to orbit a different sun. Number 9. Test through time and tension. One of the most Machiavellian laws you will ever apply in romance is also one of the simplest. Do not give final loyalty to someone you have only seen in easy seasons. Most men do the opposite. They meet a woman, experience a rush of chemistry, enjoy a few months of smooth connection, and then mentally hand her the keys to their inner kingdom. They stop observing. They stop testing. They assume that how she behaves in the honeymoon phase is how she will behave when the campaign gets hard. Machiavelli warned that fortune shows her power where valor has not prepared to resist. Translate that. Luck reveals its cruelty when you have not prepared your defenses. In relationships, time and tension are your defenses. Time shows you patterns. Tension reveals character. How does she respond when you enforce a boundary? When you prioritize work over a last-minute whim? When you say no to a plan that drains you? Does she become manipulative, cold, vindictive? Or does she communicate, adjust, and still respect you? Testing through time means you slow down your own escalation. You do not rush to move in, merge finances, or intertwine your lives before you have seen her in conflict, in boredom, in stress. You do not make her your emotional home before you have seen how she behaves when she does not get her way. You watch how she talks about her exes. Does she take any responsibility, or are they all villains and she is always the victim? You watch how she handles disappointment. Does she punish through withdrawal and drama, or does she confront issues directly? Testing through tension means you do not avoid hard conversations just to keep the peace. You bring your truth to the table early and calmly. You say what you will not accept. You ask questions that might surface uncomfortable truths. You do not do this to start fights, but to reveal reality. In war, a commander will pressure a structure to see where it breaks. In love, a leader will allow some tension to see whether the bond bends or snaps. There is a quiet, ruthless kindness in this. You are not trying to catch her failing. You are giving both of you the gift of truth before either of you has sacrificed too much. If she shows consistent disloyalty, disrespect, or misalignment when tested, you believe what you see. You do not cling to potential. You do not build castles in your head about how she could be if she just healed, or if she just understood you. Machiavelli would tell you that people rarely become completely different without extreme necessity. You will not be that necessity. Do not try. If, on the other hand, she passes the tests of time and tension, something powerful begins to grow. You see a woman who may get emotional, but returns to respect, who may disagree, but does not seek to destroy your frame, who may be passionate, but not reckless with your heart. That is when loyalty becomes rational, not just romantic. You are no longer gambling everything on a fantasy. You are investing in a pattern. Step back for a moment and look at the leaks you are closing. No worship, no pedestal keeps you from surrendering your self-respect. Withdrawing your automatic yes keeps you from living as an emotional servant. Testing through time and tension keeps you from giving your kingdom to someone who has never proven she can guard it. These are not cold rules. They are the conditions that allow real love to grow without devouring the man at its center. In the next part, we will move from defense to expansion. You will see how to reward true loyalty without becoming dependent on it. How to build a shared hierarchy that keeps your mission at the top while still making her feel deeply chosen. And how to create the kind of long-term feminine alignment that makes your relationship fuel your destiny instead of fighting it. Up to this point, you have been fortifying your inner state. You have learned to stop chasing, to build standards and boundaries, to protect your mystery, to put your mission above your moods, and to stay calm when everything feels chaotic. That alone already separates you from most men. But if you stop there, you become a cold fortress without a kingdom. Romantic power is not only about what you refuse to tolerate, it is also about what you consciously cultivate. Attraction starts the story. Retention and long-term influence decide how it ends. Most men secretly fear that if they keep their power, they cannot also be deeply loving. They believe it is either leadership or connection, authority or affection. That is a false split. Machiavelli understood that the strongest princes were not just feared, they were also respected and, when possible, loved. He wrote, "The best fortress which a prince can possess is the affection of his people. In romance, the people is one woman whose respect and affection you actually value. The question is, how do you earn that without surrendering your position?" Number 10, reward loyalty, not drama. Look honestly at your past relationships. When did you give your biggest emotional rewards? When did you send the longest messages, make the biggest gestures, offer the deepest reassurance? For many men, it is after a meltdown, after she has pulled away, caused chaos, threatened to leave, or created a dramatic scene. You panic and then you overcorrect. You pour attention, compliments, apologies, and promises over the situation. Without realizing it, you teach her nervous system a brutal lesson. If she wants more love, more validation, more proof, all she has to do is push you into crisis. A Machiavellian man reverses this conditioning. He understands the basic psychology. Behavior that is rewarded is repeated. So he becomes very careful about when and how he gives his highest quality presence. When she is loyal, respectful, supportive of his mission, he is warm, attentive, generous with his time and affection. When she acts from unfairness, manipulation, or clear disrespect, he becomes colder, quieter, more distant. He does not explode. He does not beg. He does not shower her with extra tenderness to stop the drama. He allows the discomfort to land. He does not reward sabotage. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. Machiavelli said that benefits should be conferred little by little, so that they may be better enjoyed. In your world, that means your affection, your romantic intensity, your deeper levels of intimacy are given gradually as a response to consistent loyalty, not as a bandage over repeated chaos. Over time, a woman who is capable of real partnership adjusts. She begins to understand that she gains more of you when she stands with you, not when she attacks or tests you from a place of disrespect. Number 11, the shared hierarchy. Earlier, you learned that your mission must sit at the top of your internal order. That is non-negotiable. Now you add a second layer. Inside your relationship, there is a hierarchy of roles. You are the leader. She is the most important ally. Together, you serve the mission. Most men invert this. They quietly put her emotions at the top, their comfort second, and their mission third. That structure eventually crushes them. Either they burn out trying to keep her constantly pleased, or she loses attraction because she senses there is no stable spine holding everything together. Shared hierarchy does not mean you bark orders and she obeys. It means you are responsible for direction, pace, and standards. while genuinely valuing her intuition and perspective. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise prince ought to choose wise men and give them liberty of speaking the truth to him." Your partner is one of those advisors. You listen to her instincts about people, about timing, about emotional undercurrents. You let her speak truth to you, even when it is uncomfortable. But listening is not the same as surrendering your authority. After taking counsel, you decide. She does not have to agree with every decision, but she learns that your yes and no are not up for endless debate. In practical terms, this looks like you being the one who holds the larger frame. You initiate conversations about the future. You decide where you're going and why, then invite her into that picture. You address issues early instead of waiting for passive aggression to build. You say, "This is the life I am building. This is what I expect from myself and from anyone close to me. If we are together, this is the direction we are moving." That clarity gives her something to relax into. Feminine energy wants to feel both chosen and guided. The shared hierarchy gives her both. She is not above you. She is not beneath you. She is beside you, under a mission that neither of you controls alone. Number 12, lead in the small things. A lot of men think leadership is only about big, dramatic decisions. Moving city, buying a house, changing careers. Those moments matter, but they are rare. She experiences your leadership in the mundane, daily details. This is where most men unconsciously abdicate. They say, "Whatever you want," to every choice. They never plan a date, never suggest a time, never decide a restaurant, never take charge of logistics. They believe this is being considerate. What it often feels like to her is abdication. Machiavelli advised that whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. In relationships, your times are the micro moments of daily life. When you have been passive and indecisive, you must change that conduct. You start with simple acts. You say, "Clear your schedule Friday, I'm taking you out." You make the reservation. You handle the transport. You decide the time. You adjust if she has a real constraint, but you do not force her to be the engine of every plan. You lead the rhythm of communication. You set certain rituals, like a weekly check-in about how both of you are feeling. You are the one who says, "Let us talk about this now, so it does not grow into something ugly." Leadership in the small things also appears in how you handle your shared environment. You do not let the house turn into a chaotic reflection of your moods. You keep order. You take responsibility for your side of shared tasks without being nagged. You hold the line with external influences. Family who disrespect the relationship do not get unlimited access. Friends who constantly pull you into destructive behavior are kept at a distance. You are the gatekeeper. That protective, proactive stance creates a sense of safety that no words can fake. Psychologically, these small acts stack up. She begins to experience you as the one who moves things forward. You are not waiting for life to happen to you. You are shaping it. That energy naturally extends into intimacy as well. You initiate. You read her signals, not as a nervous boy desperate for approval, but as a present man attuned to his partner. You lead there with the same combination of clarity and responsiveness. You do not wait for her to carry the full load of emotional and physical connection. You take that responsibility because you understand that leadership is service with a spine. You might worry that all this talk of structure and hierarchy will make the relationship feel rigid or cold. The reality is the opposite. Think of a river without banks. The water spills everywhere and becomes a swamp. With strong banks, it flows faster and deeper. Your leadership is the bank. Her feminine energy is the river. When you provide structure, she can relax, play, feel, and express without constantly worrying that everything will fall apart if she lets go for a moment. That is long-term alignment, not a constant negotiation of who is in charge, but a quiet agreement that you lead in order to protect what you are both building. At this stage, you have moved far past simple attraction. You are shaping a space where she can either align or disqualify herself. You reward loyalty instead of drama. You build a shared hierarchy that honors both of you while keeping your mission on top. You lead in the small things so that when the big decisions come, she already trusts the way you move. These are the conditions under which a woman does not just stay, but begins to actively support your path. In the next part, we step into the darkest and most misunderstood territory of romantic power. You will learn how to handle betrayal and disrespect without losing your soul. How to end things in a way that increases rather than destroys your self-respect. And how the final Machiavellian laws of romantic power turn heartbreak, rejection, and even abandonment into fuel for a life that no longer bends around anyone's approval. You cannot talk about romantic power without walking straight through the dark rooms most men avoid. It is easy to sound strong when the relationship is new, when respect is still high, when loyalty has never been tested. The real question is simple and brutal. What happens when she disrespects you? What happens when she plays games with your trust? What happens when you see clearly that the woman you wanted is not the woman you are actually dealing with? This is where most men lose everything they have built internally. They throw away their mission, their standards, and their self-respect just to avoid the pain of loss. Machiavelli wrote for rulers who understood that betrayal was not an if, but a when. He says, "Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony." In other words, people will forgive many things, but when they feel their comfort or resources threatened, they will turn on you. That sounds cynical, but in relationships it is simply a warning. Do not build a fantasy where loyalty is automatic. Test it, guard it, and when it is broken beyond repair, act with swiftness and finality. Number 13. No negotiation with chronic disrespect. Every relationship will have conflict. She will say things she regrets. You will say things you regret. That is not the issue. The issue is pattern. Chronic disrespect looks like name-calling that never truly stops. Public humiliation that is treated as just a joke. Repeated contempt when you state your needs. Threats to leave as a weapon to control you. Flirting with others in front of you to provoke jealousy. Most men see these red flags and immediately try to negotiate them away. They explain, they plead, they over-communicate, they go to war with her behavior while staying in the very situation that is destroying them. A Machiavellian man does not negotiate with chronic disrespect. He understands the psychology behind it. Contempt is not an accident. It is a story she tells herself about you, that you are beneath her, that she can play with your dignity and you will still be there. Once that story sets in, it is almost impossible to fully reverse. Machiavelli advised, injuries should be inflicted all at once, meaning that when you must act, you act decisively. In your world, that means you do not drag out a dying relationship where disrespect has become the norm. You confront it clearly. If it continues, you leave. You might protest, but what if I am being too harsh? What if she had a bad childhood, a bad day, a bad week? Compassion is human. Self-betrayal is not. You can understand her wounds without allowing them to rule your life. There is a difference between someone who occasionally slips and corrects and someone who repeatedly tramples your boundaries, then paints herself as the victim when you react. The first can grow with you. The second will drain you until you no longer recognize yourself. Romantic power means you do not stay to see how much damage she can do before you finally snap. Number 14. Exit like a king, not a child. The way you leave is as important as the fact that you leave. Most men fall into one of two traps when things break. They either beg, bargain, and humiliate themselves trying to hold on, or they explode in drama, revenge, and character assassination. Both positions are the same weakness in different costumes. In both cases, she still controls your emotional state. You are reacting to her every move. You have no frame of your own. Machiavelli warned rulers never to become hated, even when they had to act harshly. A prince must avoid those things which will make him hated or despised. In your world, when it is time to end things, you do it cleanly. You do not threaten. You do not send a dozen messages explaining how hurt you are in the hope she will suddenly understand. You do not stay in endless closure conversations that are really just delayed breakups. You say, "This no longer aligns with who I am and what I am building. I am ending this." Then you back that decision with action. You stop sleeping with her. You stop checking her social media. You stop letting her re-enter your life in moments of loneliness. Exiting like a king does not mean you feel nothing. You will hurt. You will miss the good moments. You will be tempted to reopen contact just to get a small hit of familiarity. But you do not make your pain someone else's problem. You do not smear her to every person you know. You do not weaponize secrets she shared with you. That kind of revenge poisons you more than it punishes her. You hold your dignity like a man guarding his last fortress. You leave in a way that your future self can look back on with respect, even if nobody else ever sees the full picture. There is a deeper psychology here. The way you handle endings becomes part of your internal mythology. If you know deep down that you always collapse, beg, or act recklessly when a woman leaves, you will start to fear that part of yourself. That fear will make you cling harder to bad relationships just to avoid triggering your own worst habits. When you teach yourself to end things cleanly, you remove that fear. You can enforce your standards because you trust yourself not to turn into a monster when it hurts. Number 15. Transmute heartbreak into power, not poison. Every man who lives fully will get his heart broken. The question is, what you do with that energy. Most men either collapse into self-pity or harden into bitter cynicism. They tell themselves all women are the same. They mock vulnerability. They close their hearts and then complain that they never feel anything real again. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune shows her power where valor has not prepared to resist her. Heartbreak is where fortune shows her power. Valor is how you respond." Transmutation starts with brutal honesty. You look at the relationship not as a sentimental movie, but as a strategic battle. Where did you abandon your standards? Where did you ignore red flags? Where did you pedestalize, overgive, or tolerate behavior that was killing your self-respect? You do not do this to torture yourself. You do it to extract the lesson. Heartbreak without reflection is just suffering. Heartbreak with reflection becomes data. It becomes intelligence. It becomes the blueprint for the new laws you now live by. Psychologically, transmutation requires you to feel fully while still choosing your direction. You do not numb out with endless distraction, substances, or empty hookups. You let yourself grieve, but you grieve as a man who is moving, not as a man who has stopped. You double down on your mission. You tighten your routines. You train your body harder, not to get revenge, but to rebuild respect with the man in the mirror. You refine your standards so clearly that next time, your body will feel the wrongness much earlier. Over time, something powerful happens. The breakup that once felt like a final judgment on your worth becomes a crucial chapter in your rise. You see that without that pain, you might have slept on your own weakness for another decade. You might have continued living as a man who sacrificed himself for attention. Machiavelli would tell you that sometimes a prince must lose a battle to become worthy of ruling a greater state. Your heartbreak is that lost battle. What you do now decides whether you become a bitter exile or a stronger ruler. And here is the paradox. The more cleanly you handle betrayal, disrespect, and endings, the more attractive you become in the long run. Not because women see the details, but because they feel the result. A man who has walked through fire without losing his respect for himself carries a different weight in his presence. He is less reactive, less desperate, less easily impressed by superficial beauty. He knows he can survive loss and still keep building. That makes him dangerous in the best way. Look at what the last laws have done for you. No negotiation with chronic disrespect keeps you from rotting inside a relationship that eats your dignity. Exiting like a king protects your mythology and your future self. Transmuting heartbreak into power turns your worst emotional defeats into the raw material of your strength. You are not just playing defense anymore. You are building a version of you that becomes more formidable with every wound he survives. In the final part, we will complete the 17 Machiavellian laws of romantic power and tie everything into one clear system. You will see how attraction, retention, and long-term influence merge into a single way of living, how to embody these laws day after day, and how to become the man whose love life revolves around his mission rather than his fears. You have walked through the entire architecture that almost no man is ever handed. You have seen how standards, boundaries, distance, mystery, mission, leadership, loyalty, betrayal, and endings all tie back to one central question. Who is actually ruling your romantic life? Is it your fears, your neediness, and your craving for validation? Or is it your mission, your values, and your calm, disciplined will? The difference between those two rulers is the difference between a life spent auditioning for love and a life where love orbits around a man with direction. Remember the hook we started with. Most men learn seduction, not leadership. They learn how to spark attraction, but not how to hold respect, not how to command long-term loyalty, not how to remain powerful when emotions are high and stakes are real. Underneath every one of the first 15 laws is the same transformation, from needy and performative to calm, principled, high-value masculine leadership. Now we close the system with the last 2 laws and then weld them together into one way of living. Number 16, ritual over mood. Knowledge is nothing if it dies in your notes. Most men watch their own insights evaporate because they try to live them only when they feel inspired. That is not how power works. Machiavelli wrote that, where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. But willingness is not a feeling. It is a commitment that survives your moods. If your leadership only shows up on your best days, your romantic power will vanish the moment stress, fatigue, or temptation arrives. Ritual over mood means you translate these laws into small, non-negotiable daily and weekly actions. You do not wait until you feel strong to act strong. You create structures that make strength your default. For example, you set a weekly appointment with yourself to review your behavior in relationships with brutal honesty. Where did you chase? Where did you pedestalize? Where did you break your own standards? You write it down. You adjust. That review happens whether you feel like it or not. You treat it as seriously as a ruler reading reports from his provinces. You do the same with your mission. You choose specific blocks of time in your day where your phone is off and your focus is on your work, your training, or your craft. Those blocks are not sacrificed because someone texts you, "I miss you," or "I wish you were here instead." You may respond later, but the ritual stands. You anchor your mornings or evenings in practices that bring you back to your center. Lifting, running, journaling, meditation, prayer, silence. The details are less important than the consistency. You are teaching your own nervous system that your state is created on purpose, not handed to you by whoever happens to be in your bed. Psychologically, ritual over mood turns the laws from ideas into identity. At first, you will feel resistance. Part of you will say, "I am tired, I will skip the review this week," or "This one time I will drop my boundary because I really like her," or "Today I will answer her message in the middle of my focused work because I do not want her to think I am ignoring her." Every time you obey that voice, you vote for the old self. Every time you obey the ritual instead, you vote for the new ruler. Machiavelli said, "A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times will come to ruin among so many who are not good." In your world, a man who wishes to rely on inspiration at all times will come to ruin among so many distractions. Ritual is how you stop that. Over time, something quiet and powerful happens. You stop having to think so hard about every interaction. Your standards are baked into your habits. You naturally pause before agreeing to plans that violate your mission. You instinctively hold eye contact and lower your voice when conflict rises. You unconsciously give more affection when she is loyal and less when she is manipulative. You are no longer performing these laws. You are embodying them. That embodiment is what women feel long before they can name it. Number 17, romantic sovereignty. This is the crown law. Without it, all the others can still be hijacked by fear. Romantic sovereignty means that, at the deepest level, your sense of worth, direction, and identity does not belong to any woman. You can love her fiercely, commit fully, build a life together, and still never hand her the authority to decide whether you respect yourself. Most men secretly do exactly that. When she is warm, they feel valuable. When she is distant, they feel worthless. When she stays, they feel powerful. When she leaves, they feel like nothing. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. In romance, sovereignty means you become both. You are the fox who sees the trap of making any one woman your entire reason for living. You are the lion who refuses to kneel to that trap, even when your emotions roar in the opposite direction. You can grieve, miss her, want her, and still keep moving your life forward. That is sovereignty. Practically, romantic sovereignty looks like this. You never speak about a woman as if she is your only chance at love. You do not say, "Without her, I am nothing," not even in your own mind. You recognize that she is unique, that your bond is unique, but you also recognize that your core identity existed before her and will exist after her if it must. You plan your future with her in it, but you do not delete the part of you that could build a future without her. When she tests you, you enforce your laws, even if it risks losing her, because losing yourself is not an option anymore. Psychologically, sovereignty is the final shift from need to mission. At the start of this journey, your actions around women were likely driven by fear, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone. That fear made you say yes when you should have said no, stay when you should have left, talk when you should have been silent, chase when you should have walked away. With sovereignty, the engine changes. You make decisions based on alignment. You ask, does this behavior, this relationship, this woman match the man I am becoming? If yes, you invest. If no, you withdraw, even if your emotions scream the opposite. Now zoom out and see the full system you have built. Attraction, retention, and long-term influence are no longer random. Attraction comes from your standards, your distance, your mystery, your mission. Retention comes from your boundaries, your shared hierarchy, your leadership in calm and conflict. Long-term influence comes from how you reward loyalty, handle betrayal, exit with dignity, and transmute heartbreak into power instead of poison. Laws 16 and 17 make all of it sustainable. Ritual keeps you consistent. Sovereignty keeps you free. You may be tempted to treat this as theory, something to admire and then forget. That would be the greatest waste of pain you have ever experienced. Every breakup, every rejection, every moment you felt small in front of a woman has given you raw material. Now you know what to do with it. Like Machiavelli coaching a young prince, these laws are not here to make you feel good. They are here to make you effective. He wrote, "A prudent man must always follow in the path trodden by great men and imitate those who have been supreme." Do that now. Imitate the version of you who already lives this way. Imagine him for a moment. He walks into a room without rushing to impress. He listens more than he speaks. He knows his mission for the next year, the next 5, the next 10. He has standards that he can voice without shaking. He can say no without hatred and yes without self-betrayal. Women are drawn to him, but he is not hypnotized by beauty alone. He tests for loyalty. He rewards alignment. He leaves when he must, and when he leaves, he does not burn the earth behind him. He simply closes the door and returns to his work. That man is not a fantasy. He is a set of behaviors chosen and repeated. If you want romantic power, stop asking, "How do I get her?" Start asking, "How do I become him?" The man whose life is already worth following. The man whose presence is both safe and strong. The man whose heart is open but never for sale. The man who leads with mission, not with need. You now hold 17 Machiavellian laws of romantic power that men rarely even glimpse. They are not tricks to control women. They are structures to control yourself. Live them quietly. Enforce them calmly. Fail, adjust, and return to them relentlessly. Over time, your relationships will start to look different because you are different. Some women will fall away. Others will rise to meet you. That is exactly what you want. Because at the end of all of this, the real victory is not that a woman chooses you. The real victory is that you choose yourself so deeply, so consistently, that only those who respect that choice can stay. That is romantic sovereignty. That is the life of a man whose love and power finally point in the same direction.